Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective podcast. This is our 253rd episode being recorded on May 29th, 2013. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
Jeremy's muted.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malentano, and Jeremy was not muted.
Jeremy, you want to come back? You want to try this again?
I'm still not muted.
I heard him.
I don't hear Jeremy.
Well,
Ha-ha.
that's your own problem.
Ha
The rest of the world can hear.
Aha.
You got punked.
This is not
I
a funny
can.
joke. How about Jeremy now? Can you hear me?
I could still hear you.
Oh, okay, good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I'm good. No, that's great. This is do we start that over or do we roll with it?
It's a learning curve.
Yeah, okay. So we're still learning.
We've done this in a while.
Yeah, we're doing great. So this, believe it or not, is a show about computer hardware and electronics, despite the fact of that little hiccup we just had at the beginning. I don't know, would we call this a busy week? Actually, I think it's kind of a slow week.
As compared to last week.
Well, no, because we do get to talk about the 780 today that we didn't get to talk about last week, even though that's what was my big concern was during the last show. We already talked about some of the Kabini system review and that kind of deal. So, but let's get into what is actually new and exciting, and that we'll still go ahead and start with the GTX 780. This is a new graphics card from NVIDIA. It looks very much like the last couple of graphics cards from NVIDIA in terms of its styling. This is the reference design you can see here. Short summary, GTX 780 is the GK110 GPU, the same GPU that was launched with the GTX Titan, but cut back a little bit. Instead of 2,688 cores, it has, I'm forgetting, 2,304.
2,300.
Is that right?
What?
2,304, is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, there we go. Goes from 2688 to 2304. You drop a little bit on the texture units, on the ROPs. The base clock is actually a little bit higher. I think on the Titan it was 836, and now it's 863. Boost clock up to 900 megahertz. Still 6 gigahertz or 6 gigabits per second on the GDDR5 memory bus, but instead of 6 gigs of memory, now you have 3 gigs of frame buffer on that 384-bit memory bus. So the specifications are very much a derivative of GK110 and of the GTX Titan, right? You take off a couple more SMX units, cut the memory from 6 gigs to 3 gigs, and then you sell it for $650 is the correct answer. If that's what you were guessing, you are correct. If you guess lower than that, I'm sorry to disappoint you. This is a $650, $649 MSRP graphics card, which puts it in an interesting place. So the Titan is $1,000. GTX 690 is $1,000. So we are looking at $350 less than those two cards. Hold on, I need to be really careful here. But the 680 sells today for $440, $450. Let's just round to $450 because I like to round and it makes the math easy. And now you're talking about a $200 difference. So there's a pretty sizable gap between the 680 and the 780, and then the 780 and the Titan. And that gap is only going to get bigger, right? If future cards come out, if there is another 700 series cards that is released, it will be at that price or lower type of thing, right? So the 780 sits in this really wide gap. And before we even really talk about performance and that kind of stuff, I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts on, is that a positive or a negative to have, you have probably a dozen cards between $400, $450 and below from like each vendor. And then above that, you've got the $650 for the 780, and then $1,000 for the Titan. Is that too big of a gap, or are they doing something very specific, do you think?
I think the market doesn't really like anything above $400 generally.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think you can kind of say $350 and below is where the vast majority
Sure.
sells. So why would you differentiate more cards at the higher range when less people are going to buy them?
I agree. I'm curious. Like, it doesn't. So when the 680 launched, there were a lot of people that looked at it and said, okay, well, this is a GK104 chip. GK104 is supposed to be the mainstream part. This was actually the card that was supposed to sell for $299, and here they are trying to sell it for $499 or $449. I think it was $499 when it launched. And this is just, NVIDIA couldn't get the GPUs that they actually wanted, so they took the GPU that they could get, and they just jacked up the price. And we dealt with that for a little while. People got over it, and they started to say, okay, well, the performance actually warrants it and all that kind of stuff. And now we haven't seen price decreases in quite a long time at the high end of the GPU market. 7970, 7970 gigahertz, 680, 670 have all been fairly static, I want to say. When the Titan came out, it was so far ahead of those other card prices that nobody even really considered it as like, hey, this is supposed to be, like, nobody said, well, this should be $600. Like, why are you doing that? This should be $600. Like, it was so far outside the realm of the casual kind of enthusiast gamer that it was almost kind of like ignored from that perspective, right? It wasn't considered in the normal lineup of graphics card releases or graphics card lineups from NVIDIA. But with the 780, I know what's going to happen. I know what has happened in the last week is that we see people who go, okay, well, this should be a $449 card or $499 card, right? The 680 launched at $499. Why is the 780 launching for $150 more than the 680 launched at? And the simple reason is nobody else is dropping prices, and it sucks because what we're seeing is people are going to continue to buy at the existing cards in that $400 price range or so and below. And NVIDIA just wants to make the 780 like this kind of flagship, desirable product rather than something that is replacing specific lineups on a chart, on a lineup sheet. And I don't know, I feel like it's going to do I feel like it's doing a disservice to the PC gaming market in general, because rather than helping to lower prices and moving performance forward, instead what we are seeing is higher prices to move performance forward. And maybe there's financial reasons for them to do this. Maybe the GPU is that hard to make, it's that expensive, the yields are bad, and they need to charge this amount. But I don't know.
Intel's still selling $1,000 processors.
Yeah, but how many?
There is still a market for, I have just bought the most expensive, fastest piece of hardware on the planet. Mm-hmm. Or in this case, the second most, because I couldn't afford the grand for a 690 or a Titan.
Right. Well, exactly. So if you have a $1,000 Extreme Edition processor that still exists, usually the next step down was like $500. There was not like a $700 processor in the mix. And I just wonder what the marketing and productization kind of mindset is there, like why they feel 650 works is because the 780, let's not even really talk about performance, right? The 780 in performance wise fits between a 7970 gigahertz edition and a Titan. It's faster than the 7970 gigahertz edition, and it's slower than the Titan, and thus it's faster than the 680 as well. And those differences can range from in the single digit percentages faster than the 7970 gigahertz up to 30 or 35% depending on the game, so and the resolution and all that kind of stuff. So there's varying reasons on why can you justify that price difference. Obviously, as you go up in the product stack, you're always paying more for that extra little bit of performance. It happens in the processor world, it happens in the motherboard world, it happens in the graphics card world, it happens in pretty much all these markets. In terms of performance per dollar, you're never going to get the best value out of a Titan or out of a 780 or a 7990 or something like that. So
unless you steal it out of the back of a truck.
Yeah.
Then your value level is tremendous.
It is.
Yeah.
Especially if you get two of them.
So, like I said, performance-wise, there's really nothing. I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of these results. It's between those two cards. In some cases, like Battlefield 3, it's actually closer to the Titan than it is to the 7970. In some cases, like in Dirt 3, it's way closer to 7970 than it is to the Titan. It really just kind of depends on the frame buffer and all that kind of stuff. If you look at power consumption, it is not that much lower than the Titan. The 780, is not that much lower than the Titan because it's the same GPU. And chances are, in the bidding process, they're taking ones that maybe would have been outside the thermal limits of a GTX Titan, and they can cut off a couple of parts and sell them as a GTX 780. Power consumption's good. SLI works great. Sound levels are good on this card, especially the reference design because it's using the same cooler as the GTX Titan. It's pretty good, and it's readily available as of today. You can, if I click through to this link, you can buy $649 GTX 780s.
Why is there a
Galaxy
$10 premium for getting an ASUS GTX 780?
because it's out of stock. I don't know.
Oh, damn.
I don't know. They all look the same, right? It's just a matter. There's a whole bunch of them out of stock. So maybe that means they sold 10. Maybe that means they sold 10,000. I honestly don't know. But there are still a couple of them readily available. You can even buy an ASUS pre-built machine, apparently, with a GTX 780 in it. Limit 2 per customer.
And what is NVIDIA saying about this in terms of availability, how much they can stock?
You know, they wouldn't give any firm numbers on anything, right? The last bit of information I heard was the GTX Titan is selling tremendously well, way better than
compared to what expectation?
Well, exactly, tremendously well, and I think compared to the 690, right? People loved the single GPU, the single monolithic GPU, even though it was slower than the 690 in many cases. The single monolithic GPU with 6 gigs of memory, you know, was really intriguing to a lot of people. So I don't have any of those kind of answers about this or anything yet. It's hard to say. Like, if I wish I had a backdoor entrance to the Newegg sales database. Imagine the amount of information you could get from there. Who do we know that has capabilities with networking and security? Anyway.
I would rub my chin, but I'm hairless.
So yeah, that's the 780. You can, if you want to, you can listen to me discuss these very same topics in a video live stream that we did last week on the launch day on Thursday of the 780. You can see here we actually were trying out a new live streaming platform that didn't work exceptionally well. YouTube Live. It had some issues in it, but it's up there if you want to check out that video. We did not have, so I posted like the day before, hey, we're going to do a live stream for an NVIDIA GeForce launch. And not everybody, but some people sent in questions like, hey, ask Tom about this. And I had to disappoint everybody when we turned on the stream, and it was just me. No Tom.
What happened to Tom?
He didn't come out for the 780 launch. Take that for what you will. Maybe it's not as important a product to NVIDIA as the other ones.
Maybe he's still mad at you from that night.
He forgives hard. I don't know how that sounds, but anyway, let's see. What did we talk about last week in terms of Kabini and Tamash and all that kind of stuff? We talked about the Kabini laptop, right? The reference machine and all that kind of stuff. Josh,
Did you?
I think we did.
I think so.
It would be we because you were on the show.
Yeah, but I was
well.
brain dead.
Well, not abnormal. I think we talked about most of this stuff. I mean, so AMD launched 3 new platforms for their mobility segment. Tamash for tablets, Kabini for higher performance tablets and smaller end notebooks, and then Richland for laptops and ultra portables and higher performance machines. Yeah, because we talked about the Jaguar architecture last week.
We did. We
Okay.
talked about it
Okay.
extensively.
Okay, so we talked
And
about
your results, so
Yes.
it's good to go.
Okay, all right. So we talked about that last week. There was a lot going on in the last week's podcast, so not a problem there. Maybe let's talk about something new from AMD. They announced a new line of Opteron parts, Josh.
Yes, they did. It's kind of interesting how much AMD news we've been having lately, and it's going to continue here for a little while.
All right, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's good for the company because, interestingly enough, it's not all rats off a sinking ship. We've had some big people come back and some small people go there for the first time. And I'm just not talking about Sean's, limitations in height. But
No.
do you think he's watching?
Yeah, sure.
No.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, all kinds of people are going back into AMD, and they're hiring some new folks.
I hear they're building a crack team of people
Crack
over
team.
there. Hey guys, right?
Cream of the crop.
Dream
Yeah.
team and Sean.
He's gonna love you.
Oh man.
Oh, poor Sean. But anyway, yeah, AMD's finally looking like they're starting to act their size, which is they're small and they can be nimble with their products.
All right.
They don't have to what?
I thought we were still making jokes, but you were being serious. Okay, go ahead.
I never noticed Sean being all that nimble, but
Well, he's quick, like a fox.
he is small and quick.
Yeah.
Oh dear Lord,
We're gonna get calls tomorrow.
we're gonna get the bad calls. They're gonna cut us out. But anyway, why did you have to say that? But yeah, when AMD was really competing with Intel, a lot of people who were in there said that, things really slowed down. The company acted a lot bigger than they actually were. A lot of their advantages of having, a pretty small teams, not a huge vertical structure to go up, and not very many people to really pass through with these new ideas, new product ideas, new architectural ideas. Things really, really slowed down. And we can kind of see that, and perhaps, that was something that Dirk Meyer implemented, or, even before with, oh gosh, what was his name? The ex-Motorola guy. Who liked to
Hector.
play the guitar. Hector
Ruiz.
Yeah, I think Hector kind of, and plus, even then, Jerry Sanders, he was kind of a bigger in life character, and not all the things he did were positive for the company.
Right.
So they've got Rory in there, who's, high energy guy, and I think that he's really starting to turn things around. Now, whether or not they will continue to be, if they will even regain any measure of success, or if they're going to stay, where they're at, I have a lot more faith in what Rory's doing. And, one of these things right now that we're seeing with the Opteron X-series is that of, the smaller, more focused, more nimble AMD. So they've taken Kabini, and they added a bunch of things in here that we didn't particularly previously notice before, like the ability to utilize DDR3, 1600 ECC RAM. So it's only single channel, but it can handle up to 32 gigs, and it's all ECC. The L2 cache is, of course, ECC. And they have a lot of, kind of server-ready features in this product that they can roll out. And plus, it's a true SoC. It's got the South Bridge on there. It's got 8 PCIe lanes, 2 SATA 2 or 3G ports. It's got 8 USB 2.0 ports and 2 USB 3.0 ports. And there's 2 models. The X1150, which is GPU-less, so it's not an APU, it's just a CPU. It's quad-core, 2 megs L2 cache, and it can be configurable from 9 watts to 17 watts. So depending on what kind of server architecture they're looking at, how dense it's going to be, they can adjust the core speeds to take up either, the maximum 9 watts or a max of 17. And at 17 watts, I think it runs at 2 gigahertz. So it's going to be a pretty quick part for how much power it pulls. Now the other is the X2150, and that's a true APU. It's got the GCN core enabled on it, and it goes from 11 watts to, I believe, 19 or 20 watts. But again, it's configurable. It can go up to 1.9 gigahertz. You can take the GPU clock from 266 megahertz to 600 megahertz, and at the full speed, it's a pretty nice performing part. And you can stack a bunch of these things together in, like, blade servers and whatnot. And the power and performance is really, I mean, it's class leading at this point, because what they're going against is the S1200 series from Intel, which is atom based. It's a slightly lower TDP, but it's not a true SoC.
Is that
So
Silvermont?
No, this is their 32
yet.
nanometer Clover Trail Plus, I
Oh,
believe.
okay, all right.
But it's like an 8.5 watt part. However, it doesn't have the integrated south bridge. So when you add that chip in, you're adding 2 to 3 more watts at most. And plus, they're running the SGX 545. I'm at Power VR integrated graphics, which is not fantastic. It's a DX9. I think it's _3 is what they're kind of it's a DX9 essentially.
Subset, right.
The highest end DX9
Gotcha.
part you can possibly get. OpenGL ES 2.0, I believe. AMD surpasses this, of course, with the GCN cores DX 11.1, and it supports the full OpenCL 1.2 specification. So you've got a lot of performance and processing power in just this little chip. They're selling it for $99, and again, it's nice to see AMD being a lot more nimble, getting these products out faster. HP has already announced that they're using these for their Moonshot servers, which are these, super high, dense, low power per individual blade or module, whatever they want to call it. And it's going to be in the C-Micro S15000 series or something like that. AMD bought C-Micro last year, and so we're going to start seeing a lot more about microservers over the next 6 or 7 months until Intel brings out their Silvermont cores. But again, AMD has a nice window of opportunity to be able to get some business in this. While it's a small market right now, it's a growing one, and a lot of people see that with our whole array of connected devices that we're going to see a lot more of these servers being rolled out and being used for more cloud-type computing.
Very cool. Sorry, I was reading a leaked story on some stuff that is wrong.
Wrong.
Charlie?
What? No, of course not. Could never be. Let's talk about a storage article that came out this week as well. The OCZ Vertex 450, which is a 256 gig drive. Not
Well,
a 450 gig
Different
drive.
sizes.
Well,
we
this one.
benchmarked the 256.
Okay. But is there a 450 gig version of the 450?
No, there's only, it goes straight to 512.
Well, missed opportunity. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is sort of a new product line. We actually talked about this last week on Twitch, which threw me because I thought we talked about it on our podcast.
I know,
last week.
right.
But it wasn't out yet.
Correct.
Then. Now it is. So, okay. So everybody's used to OCZ Vertex being equated with Sandforce. And Vector, which was that one...
Vector
sort of-
Vertex. Vector Vertex.
Vector was the other guy. Victor.
Roger,
Yeah.
Roger.
So Vector was the newest version of the Barefoot 3 Indilinx
Surely you can't be serious.
thing that happened, right?
Stop calling me Shirley.
Yes. So here's what they did. I think they're sort of consolidating their lines, and I think they sort of didn't want Vector to carry any further. So they took the Indilinx Barefoot 3, made a slightly newer version of it,
Yep.
put it in the Vertex.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. So anything up to Vertex, what was the last one? Was it 3.20? That was the 20 nanometer.
There was a Vertex
Sandforce
4,
Drive
wasn't
20
there?
nanometer in the
3.2,
Vertex, right?
Yeah, but 3.2 came after that, yeah.
Yeah, 3.20 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably going to be the last Vertex that had Sandforce, I suspect.
So you think they're getting rid of Sandforce altogether?
Well, this thing sort of walks all over it, and...
But what about Sandforce 3? Isn't there room for Sandforce 3 sometime in the future?
I don't know.
Low-cost alternative.
I don't know. But for now, the Sandforce is going to remain in their agility line, right? It's just with cheaper flash memory.
All right.
It's the asynchronous style flash instead of the synchronous style. Okay, so new Barefoot 3 Indilinx, slightly tweaked over the last version. It's actually, the block
Hey.
diagram looks identical.
Hey, let me make a suggestion to you.
Yeah.
Make the pictures bigger so that when I click on them, they get bigger.
Yeah. go.
All right.
Well,
You
some
know,
of them I do that
800
with,
by
but-
600 is good enough for you. It's good enough for my mom.
If it was good enough for my
on her
monitor in
CRT.
1999, it's good enough for my monitor today.
So Alan, when are they going to have the Bigfoot
I
instead
don't
of the
know.
bear?
Okay, so
Wouldn't,
here's all
wouldn't
the
you
stuff
like
with
to
this drive.
have like a
Um,
big 5 1/4 inch SSD?
No. They tried that and no. 5 1/4 inch.
Ooh, a bigger
All
one.
right.
Ooh.
Yeah, see, bigger. Haha, I did it with that one. Like that? All right, so
See, it gets
here's
bigger.
the deal with this. If you think back to Vector, OCZ said they were trying to reduce costs, and they were packaging their own flash memory, and they're not doing that anymore for some reason.
Huh.
Don't know why, but now this is IMFT branded flash memory in this drive. So it's basically a Vector that is running on 20 nanometer Vice 25 nanometer flash. It's pretty much what this is. And the performance is almost exactly the same. So they managed to make minimal performance penalties moving to 20 nanometer,
All right.
which does take a little bit longer on the writes.
Which
to the 25
performance
nanometer.
page should I show? What's your favorite?
IO meter.
IOPS?
Yep, that's the good one.
IOPS?
And so you see the red and the blue lines there is Vector and Vertex 450, and they're both basically just, you know, right neck and neck with each other. It's pretty much just data scatter is the only reason that
All right.
they're different at all. The other cool thing is that one of the differences that OCZ said that they did with this barefoot controller was reduce the clock rate, which does not seem apparent at all by what's arguably one of the most demanding tests on an SSD, which is the IOPS testing that we do.
Yeah.
So it just seems like they made it more efficient from the looks of it. And they were able to also more efficiently drive 20 nanometer flash. Because if you look at other SSD controllers, when they move from 25 to 20 on the flash, you know, process, usually things slow down a little bit more than what I see here.
So,
So it's
quick
good. That
question.
it's, yeah.
What doesn't a lot of this new 20 nanometer flash have greater levels of what is it, Onfi?
Yes, it does, but these drives usually do not use the much greater levels. Like Onfi
Why?
2.1.
Not.
Because it's way overkill. And I think it's also a binning thing. I think it's more expensive to buy single packages that go all the way up to the maximum Onfi like speed grade. Like I think there's like 6 different speed grades for this stuff as far as what it can handle. And then there's also different grades of communication, which is synchronous or asynchronous. So the sync and the async is the big difference in price. And then once you get past that, there's speed grades that they're supposed to be able to communicate at. So if you try to run it at the absolute maximum speed, then you have, you know, a better chance of failure, and you're pushing it much harder. That sort of thing. And it would only take I think it would only take 2 or 3 of those packages, maybe even less than that, to saturate serial ATA 6 gigabit. So whereas this is like an 8-channel controller. So you don't
I have
really
a question
need...
as well.
Yes.
But I'm more important, Ryan.
Anyway,
Except,
if we look at the Yapt page,
Yes.
the blue line representing Vertex 450, the new drive here, has this kind of oscillating pattern to it that I see on these things. Do we have any idea why that would be?
No, but it was reproducible.
It's running in Crossfire.
Oh.
It's free. Next week.
It's actually 2 4-channel controllers that we have merged through
Frame
a
rating.
software. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. There's actually, that's not the only SSD that does weird things with Yapt. Some of the SSD controllers just don't seem to play nicely with how Yapt does its I/O access patther.
Yeah,
And
it
Yapt
just
is so
seemed very
forward-
regular and patterned as opposed to the
Yeah.
rest. That's all.
Were there any drop data packets? Did you get any runt data packets too?
No, there were no runts. There were no dropped packets. Okay, so with that said, you basically have a drive that's performances, I would just say, on par with a Vector, right?
Vector.
The Vector was previously the fastest drive we tested as far as SSDs go, as far as like raw I/O per second performance, that sort of thing. So you have a similar kind of drive, except now it's named a Vertex 450. And hopefully, if the pricing holds, it will also be one of the lowest cost per gig. So I don't know
Yes,
how.
so
OCZ
I'm on
is
the
going
last
to do
page
that.
here. Pros,
Yep.
excellent performance. Pros, excellent cost per GB. Cons, availability may be issue. And
Yep.
here we go. 92 cents per gigabyte.
On the 256 gig, which
Yep.
is arguably the most popular of a capacity anyway.
Sure.
So it's nice that the
You're a
sweet
loser.
spot is where people are probably going to be buying them anyway, right?
Yeah.
Just it looks good all around, especially for that price. I mean, if you have these things, the MSRP is that, and retailers actually will hold to that MSRP, hopefully. Because we've seen this before, right? We've seen manufacturers undercut on their MSRP, and then they can't keep them in stock, and everybody jacks up their prices because everybody wants that instead of,
Yeah.
brand X
Sure.
or whatever. So hopefully that doesn't happen. As a matter of fact, I mean, we could probably look at that now. The thing's been out for like a week. Is it even in stock anywhere?
Hey, let's look at it now.
It's not in stock yet.
Yeah, not in stock yet. Yeah. But it was, from what I understood, it was shipping when it launched. So,
Not so much that I could see from Newegg.
yeah.
Bastards.
I don't know.
All right, well, it's a good drive. I mean, so it's not available for sale yet.
Oh, wait. It's on
Hey,
Vertex 450
Hey,
series.
wait a minute. Also, your article has no tags, Alan.
It's on
Oh,
Newegg.
Alan.
Bigger
It had
pic-
tags.
Drop packets. Look what the drive did.
Why
to
is the manufacturer labeled OCZ SATA 3 SSD products page? It should just be listed as OCZ.
See, that doesn't make any sense either.
Oh, no.
Who's been haxering your...
They hacked just the manufacturer and tagged forms of your most recent article. It's China. They're on to you.
That is actually, yeah, I don't get why I did that.
All right. Well, that's fine.
Smoking dope.
Yeah.
Obviously. So we don't have a sponsor again this week, except for you guys.
The readers.
The awesome people.
I just wanted to give you a quick update on our Indiegogo stuff. It has been an absolute frigging madhouse for me the last 2.5 weeks, so I apologize for not really getting to all of those contributors and starting to address some of the stuff. But do not worry, we have figured out what our T-shirt's going to be. We're making the form so that you can fill out exactly what size you need and all that kind of stuff. The Indiegogo kind of site back end doesn't really make that super easy, so I have to build a form on our side, and then we'll have to manually match all the contributors with their addresses and that kind of stuff. But we are starting to utilize some of those funds. We got new cameras. Wait, we got a new audio coming in from that HDMI source too. But we'll switch back to this one now.
You know, you look more ghetto in that other shot.
What do you mean?
Well, if you'd ever switch it over.
There
Oh,
you
look,
go.
you got a random chair there. You've got a big cupboard with a clock on it.
That is not a clock.
You're in a corner of a room.
That is a Dharma Initiative logo. Yes, I am in a corner of a room. That's why we're going to use this whole other side way back that way once we get the set built.
Well, okay.
So that's the plan. But just wanted to say thanks again. We did not forget about anybody. All that stuff is coming. I needed to get through 780, another product, Haswell, Z87, Richland,
Accountants.
mobile graphics cards. I'm looking at the whiteboard, some other stuff. So once that happens, June should be a piece of cake, right? Right? Nothing's happening in June.
Yeah.
So thank you guys very much for that. We are incredibly appreciative. Just want to make sure everybody knows that we are still rolling along. Let's move on to the news and address a couple of these things. Did we talk about this? Nope. Epic Games being disappointed with the PS4 and Xbox One. This was kind of a editorial that Scott wrote, not taking a line from Epic directly, more or less just talking about, hey, Epic came out a little while ago and said, here's what we hope to see from the next generation of consoles coming forward, and they did not get that. So by assumption, taking that next logical step would be, well, then they're disappointed. And then obviously this quote from Mark Rain is my favorite. Mark Rain of Epic Games responds to a statement by Rajat Taneja of EA, where they said, where was that line? It's important. Claims that the Xbox One and PS4 are a generation ahead of highest-end PCs on the market. While there are many ways to interpret that statement in terms of raw performance, it seems not valid. And then Mark Rain says, no, they're not. I call bullshit on this one.
Well, because, you know, they're made from magic pixie fairy dust, and the stuff inside of that can't be bought for a PC at all.
Correct.
GCN, no, we can't get that here.
Correct. They have some cool stuff in the consoles that we don't have on the PC side, like the SRAM cache on the Xbox One. I almost said 360 on the Xbox One, and the GDDR5 memory controller that handles the CPU memory accesses as well on the PS4. Right. So there's some interesting things that are different that may actually make them more efficient and more powerful than otherwise exactly spec'd PCs. But the PS4 will have 1152, right, shaders, Radeon cores, whatever they want to call them now, while the 7970 has 2048. So, I mean, it's more expensive, probably, to build a PC around a 7970 than it is to build a PS4. But to say that they're somehow a generation ahead of PCs is pretty much the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Although it'd be interesting to see if they can actually dynamically switch from 1080p to 720p. Just sort of cut down the resolution and try and get a little bit more extra performance out of it, like a couple of sources seem to have been implying.
Yeah, I don't know. It's stupid.
Yeah,
but it's one chip.
The new consoles are faster than the old consoles, and they're gooder. They're more gooder. Just accept it and move on. Like, I mean, I think this is this. I'm trying to think back. It's been so long since the PS3 and the Xbox 360 were launched. When they just announced the specs of the PS3 and the 360, was that at or above? I want to say that it was higher performance compared to the current PC spec. Not when they were released, but when they were announced.
Yes.
Do you think they were?
Yeah, because it was what the HD 1800 was from AMD.
Yeah.
And the
7900?
GTX
7900, I think.
7800.
7800? Okay.
When they announced it.
Okay.
And that was the high end at the time. And so, yeah, they were right at the high end kind of peak specs because it's got the 1800 that had the 16 shader cores, ALUs, and then the one they showed off with the Xbox was 48? Anyway.
Yeah, I can't
so
remember
many
exactly. I was
years
trying to
ago.
look, but
Yeah, plus they had the EDRAM. 10 megs of EDRAM.
Oh, yeah.
You could do all kinds of fun and interesting things with multi-sampling AA.
Huh.
That's 720p.
yeah.
Mm.
Scott also wrote a second editorial up on the site making fun of console manufacturers, saying they don't want much, just the impossible. I'm not going to try to explain it. I feel like I'd have to read the entire thing to you. But he is starting it based on a Wired editorial that states hardcore console gamers don't want much, just the impossible. They want a super-powered box tethered to their TV. They want the blockbuster epics and innovative indie titles. They want it to, quote, just work for what they do.
Zero configuration. It's just going to work.
The Magic Wand console.
No, that's the Wii.
Or made by Hitachi, and we're not going to go there.
I'm trying to find if there are key points here. The console manufacturers are not doing any more than maybe breaking even at some point. Eventually, down the line, they hope Microsoft and Sony throw obnoxious amounts of money against one another in research, development, and marketing. Redundant technologies are formed to pit against their counterparts with billions spent in marketing to try to prove that either choice is better, like Kinect versus Sony Move.
Yeah.
Or
what's the other one called?
the Nintendo Wiimotes versus the Sony Wand with the blue balls on the end. That's the Move as well. The camera and the little controllers are all
No,
called
the
Move.
Move has
Okay.
got blue balls.
Some pink balls too.
Yeah, well.
Okay, here
let
me posit this out for you.
You pause it.
I probably used that incorrectly in my terminology,
Sure.
but how much is good enough? I mean, we've got this console. It's got 8 gigs of memory. How much does your laptop have that you do perfectly fine?
Eight.
Probably what, 4 gigs, 8 gigs?
Yeah.
On my laptop, I don't game on it, but it has 8 gigs.
Yeah, but
The 32-bit, so it's
the
only CN4 or is it 64-bit?
Oh, who has a 32-bit machine these days? That's crazy.
yeah, I know. And so, for the vast majority of the entertainment stuff, especially that Microsoft is doing, with you got 2 VMs going in there,
Yeah.
you can switch back and forth. How much do we really need for all of these 1080p TVs that we have out there?
But 4K, Josh.
Yeah, but 4K, who can afford a $1,300 4K monitor that you reviewed?
It was $11.99 when I bought it. No, was that right? It was $11.99 when I bought it. $11.99.
Wow.
I think
Got it at Quibids.
here's the problem, right? I think today your argument, your posit, if you will, to improperly use it again, is correct. Like 8 gigs of memory is probably great. The processing power they have is probably pretty good, but the console generation is going to last like 10 years.
But I mean, look at back at the Xbox 360. Had 512 megs of memory. At that point, even average, crappy PCs were 1 gig. Gaming were 2 gig to 4 gig. I mean, they still 512 meg, and people were thinking, boy, it's going to look kind of crappy, and it
512 meg combined for CPU and GPU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had issues there as well.
Yeah. I don't know what you're trying to tell me.
I don't know. I think that we've finally hit a point where, with consoles, it's going to be pretty good for a long time.
Well, and I think the Xbox 360 proved that. It was pretty good for a long time. And the PS3 had its own share of issues, but it was also pretty good for a very long time. The problem is anytime you have a fixed hardware ecosystem for the better part of a decade, you're holding back certain things, right? Imagine if they only updated. Imagine if they only updated phone platforms once every 7 years.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Shut up, Jeremy. They only updated cell phone platforms once every 7 years, right? When did the iPhone come out? The original iPhone?
2007.
2007.
I had a tweet about that, discussing what we have then and what we have now.
And it's an amazing difference.
It's massive. We have quad cores running at 2 gigahertz, and back then it was an ARM 11 based processor running at
50 megahertz.
250 megahertz, something like that. It was horrific.
So how does that back up your argument then that things are good enough? Like there's always going to be room for improvement. And when the iPhone came out, everybody thought this is great. What else are you going to need to do?
Really? I mean, I remember watching like Leo on Twid, talking about, wow, it's really kind of laggy in ways. It's not as crisp and clean as I'd like. And he had the Palm Pre, and he's like, oh, this is a little bit better, but it still had
that's correct.
Issues.
I had that too.
And now, if you probably looked at the GS3 versus the GS4, the vast majority of things you're doing, you're probably not going to see that much of a difference in performance. I
want to be able to push a button and have it instantly take a photo regardless of what app I'm in. I want it to do...
That's called a camera.
Is that more software or the hardware?
Well, it's both, right? I mean, what if I'm playing Unreal Citadel or something like that on my phone? I don't know why you would do that, but...
So then you want, VMs on your Galaxy S4.
Sure, but you then need to have the hardware built for that, and the power and technology and performance built for that. I'm not disagreeing with you that I think the new consoles are actually surprisingly powerful. There's a big PC, holier than thou mentality out there where we're going to make fun of the console generation as it is today in the new systems, and that's stupid because it's also, the console upgrade helps PC gamers, right? Now we're on x86 and GCN. It's a very PC-centric design. It's gonna prevent, I think, PC ports from being like a big thing. It will be, developed for one, and it just scales in quality and that kind of thing. But I think a bit better argument would be not that the hardware is good enough forever, but that the hardware will be good enough for a long enough time.
For a while.
I think it'll be good enough for a while, long enough that we'll probably get further and further away from having localized hardware, period.
Yes, on live.
Right. On live 2.0, though, Jeremy. 2.0.
But think of it from the reverse side. Yes, it means that console technology is going to stagnate for a bit. On the other hand, it's a huge win for AMD, who is going to be mass-producing chips at lower and lower costs per chip over years, and seeing a steady
they're
revenue
not going to be
stream from
producing
these.
it. But they are going to still receive royalties.
Or they're licensing it and getting royalty.
Yeah.
But it's still guaranteed income.
Yes. Upwards of about $7 billion for this entire generation of products: the Wii U, the Xbox One, and the PS4.
Wii U.
Exactly.
Wii U.
Let's move on. Talk about some other things. I've got a handful more news items to get here. MSI wanted to get into the mix and say, "Hey, we have Z87 motherboards too." Z87 MPOWER motherboard series is being released. Showed off. You can see some
Are
pictures.
they all new?
The all new.
The all new.
Oh, new.
If you look real close,
Z87.
if you look at this picture, it has something called super pipe instead of super pipe.
Oh.
But that's garbage.
It's super pipe,
They got digital power with ALL.
which is French for very loud.
Super RAID, Go to BIOS, DirectOC, Audio Boost,
They're
Killer,
super everything else.
Clear CMOS.
Whoa, that's new.
It's a new type of vodka.
Is this the same picture? What am I looking at?
Something.
Oh, one is the MPOWER, one is the MPOWER Max.
Max!
Like Con.
So we'll have reviews and stuff of those motherboards. There's nothing really interesting to show. We didn't get a huge lineup breakdown like we did from ASUS and Gigabyte from MSI. Let's talk about the Western Digital SE series. Did they change something now that they're going with uppercase, lowercase?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
they
it's
sort of
Selenium.
changed. They sort of changed.
They got Selenium,
everything.
Xeon, and Rhenium.
Okay, so Western Digital is still going to have, for the consumer grade stuff, they're still going to have.
No,
like,
RE stands for
Huh?
Rhenium.
No.
Luddite.
No. Luddite. No, they're still for Western Digital consumer drives. They're still going to have blue and green and red and all those, right?
Okay.
But then if you carry it a little bit further from red, which is like your home office sort of data center-ish sort of thing, right? Little NAS kind of thing. They wanted something that was basically, there used to be a big gap between that and an RE, because an RE is like all-out enterprise class drive, right? But you had some enterprise customers that were like, hey, we want enterprise class drives, but we're just doing like a storage array or something. It's not like the frontline database server. It's just something that just needs to store data. But it needs to be a huge RAID, right? But it's mostly, it's not going to be like constant, just getting hit with IOs all the time, that sort of thing. So the idea is to make a lower grade RE, which is called the SE, which is this guy that showed up today. So it's a 7200 RPM drive. So that part is similar to the RE series. It is advanced format. So that's actually borrowing the feature from Red, right? It's not the RE feature, it's a Red feature. And then it has the other stuff, the other RE stuff like the RAFF, that's the acceleration feed forward feature thing. Basically, it has accelerometers on the PCB of the hard drive. So if you have a bunch of these in a cage, right, you can't put too many Reds in one array all
You
in the
can
same
never have
physical
enough
assembly.
many reds.
Yeah, Reds.
Better dead than
And
red.
blue poppers.
The problem is if you put too many of them in the same assembly and there's any kind of vibration, then it's like a harmonic kind of vibration thing, and it starts causing errors.
Starts
Starts
saying,
causing like
"Wee-oo,
misreads on the
wee-oo,
drives.
wee-oo."
Yeah. So the SE series has those accelerometers, so it can sort of negate that issue. And it has a couple other features sort of borrowed over from the RE series. Now I haven't seen what the prices are that these things are actually going for, but from what I can tell from running it through the benches, the performance is basically it's like 90% of the way there to an RE. So it's performs well. It definitely performs better than a Red. But I don't think this is going to be. I think it's going to be more towards the Red on pricing than towards the RE. That's my suspicion. But the idea is, if you have an enterprise, you shouldn't have to buy drives that are not really meant for their purpose. If there was a hole there, they should have filled it, which the SE does. And then there's this XE that they also added to their rebranding line. But the XE has sort of been out already. They just weren't making that big of a deal about it. But that is a SAS-based Velociraptor that's 300, 600, 900 gig capacity. It's basically 10,000 RPM, 2.5-inch drive. It's same kind of form factor as the Velociraptor is, but just more of an enterprisey sort of configuration of it. And that's that. More to follow, though. I just finished the whole round of benches on this guy.
More
So
to
we'll probably
follow.
Yes, we'll probably have a full review up tomorrow.
Tim posted a news story looking at the Cirrus.
Like crowd.
Cirrus 7 launches a small form factor Nimbus. Oh, I get it. I get it now. I just needed to read the rest of the title. PC with aluminum fin stack, and it looks like that.
It's a lot of interesting CNC going on there.
Oh, it is a Kickstarter here.
So basically, is that the size of a Nuck?
No, it's a
little
mini. Ooh, look at this animation. Ooh, look, they're building it.
Animation
They're
domination.
building it. They're making
It's a
it.
Meccano case.
Wow, that
So apparently, I'm being told by Ken that they're going to add. They just add more layers to it, to be able to support additional TDPs.
Oh,
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
so when heat
No, it's a
and
really great
humidity
idea.
rises, then clouds start to grow.
Yeah.
so what is the size of this thing? Really?
It's a mini ITX, is
It's
it not?
bigger than a
Oh,
bread
okay.
box.
Yeah.
I mean smaller.
So mini ITX, no active cooling.
Uh,
Only if you run a fan on the outside of it.
And you can fry pancakes. Pancakes!
I think it might be the new thin mini ITX. Yeah, thin mini ITX. This is the board it uses. No, I don't want to take your damn survey.
Thin mini ITX.
It uses the
So
Intel
like
desktop
They don't use
DQ77KB. So
Dairy Queen?
Dairy Queen 77 UK.
Clouds.
That's pretty cool. It's built like a sandwich. Different layers of laser-cut aluminum is stacked to form a heat sink case. Simple and cost-effective design is the idea between the concept. It does not require any heat pipes.
Scroll to the bottom.
All the way to the bottom. Scrolling to the bottom.
Then like the third last comment.
Third. This one right here.
Comment.
The last benchmarks will show if the 45 watt TDP CPUs will be sold one layer higher at 63 millimeters. Also, maybe in the future there will be some more layers for a 65 watt TDP CPU. That's kind of cool.
Please do not stack upon flammable material.
Well, depends on what you
If
go
only
for.
they'd make it with copper and an outside sheath of aluminum. Then we get dissipation and conduction. And it would weigh about 35 pounds for the case.
I'm for it. I'm for it.
Yeah.
If you have AMD graphics card in your system, Catalyst 13.6 beta drivers were released today for Windows and Linux, as Jeremy would say. Apparently, they add some support for AMD A10, A8, A6, and A4 APUs to Ubuntu X Server and GLX EXT buffer age. Man, Linux is awesome.
Yeah, apparently it's support for the, Broadcom and I can't remember the other wireless
Oh, the
display.
wireless display stuff?
Yeah,
Theros.
yeah, that's added
That's
in
pretty
there, the
awesome.
Atheros. And so, yeah, it's Richland and Kabini support for these betas.
All right, I'm for it now. Great.
Yes.
Great. Fantastic.
I'm all
we'll
over
know
it.
more about Richland soon. Wink. Right, Josh?
I'm not going to wink at you because
Wink at me.
Ken's my type.
Fair enough. Finally, not to be outdone by Gigabyte having an audio discussion for their upcoming Z87 motherboards. Did you know that the ASUS Maximus 6 Formula Supreme FX Evolution is a thing? Because it's a thing, guys. They released a preview of the audio functionality to be designed into their upcoming Maximus 6 formula. ASUS is continuing in their evolution of the Supreme FX audio, as you can see here, 2011, 2012, to coming soon in 2013. Very clever, I guess.
Yeah, essentially, it's Professor Bose urinated on each and every motherboard and improved
That would
the
improve
audio
it.
dynamics.
So in 2011, the Rampage 4 formula saw the Supreme FX3 shielding, red line PCB isolation, dedicated audio layer, stainless steel EMI cover, and 1500 microfarad
Farad
buffer
like Faraday.
cap. Oh, okay, I got you.
Farad.
Microfarad.
The next year, they
UF.
added a TPA 6120 headphone amp and the ELNA premium audio caps. And then this year,
What are they gonna add?
This
What are they gonna
year
add?
is coming
What are they gonna add? Tell me now.
I can't.
Replaceable op amps would be my guess.
Oh no, that would be
Oh.
the worst thing ever. That would be really disappointing for them if that were the case. All right, let's do hardware software picks of the week. All right, you ready, guys? This is mine. I found this on a desk here at the office recently that says most awesome feature of this card, exclamation point. All right, and so there's this post-it note. And this is what came in this one's not under NDA, is it? Okay. This is from the
The nuts
EVGA
and bolts are under NDA.
EVGA, more or less. EVGA GTX 780. It's shipped with 2 plastic baggies. Unfortunately, they're just hardware inside them. One of them is the competitors. It has a sleeve type bearing. Boo.
Boo!
But theirs on EVGA fan is
got balls.
2 ball bearings. Can you see
They
them there?
got the
See those little
balls
ball
from the
bearings? See them?
Did anybody bring up the fact that ball bearings are noisier?
It's true.
But they by a low margin, I'm told, and they last forever-ish, more ever-ish.
They do last longer, but it's just they're noisier. That's the catch.
But there's 2 of them as well.
There's a better chance of your fan failing, but by
Look,
getting
Ryan's
trapped up
got
with
2
dust.
balls. And a
You know,
True.
either the
sack.
fan's gonna get
Greasy
trapped up with
balls.
dust, or Ken's gonna knock a blade off with his finger.
Ooh, yeah, that's much more likely. It's much more likely.
That is.
That's all I have for my pick for this week.
You
So,
suck.
I do. Moving on, Jeremy.
Well, okay. It's an odd one, but a while ago we used to see Wired and a couple other tech sites talk about transcranial direct current stimulation. Essentially, really low amperage, microamperage, sort of frying your brain and making your maths better.
It's more like slow
Somebody
cooking.
came up with an instructable on how to build your own little device to try and play with this. So, hey,
Okay, here we go.
if you feel like, frying your brain a little bit and demonstratively actually provide
Is
something.
Is she playing Dungeon Siege?
She is now. She wasn't able to before. But if you want to play with it, if you want to see, if this is actually qualitatively going to make an improvement, you can actually make one for relatively cheap.
Yes, this thing
So there
passes
you go.
current through your brain.
Yes.
So you should definitely make it yourself before you're smarter.
Yes. And if that doesn't work, at the very bottom of the article is their old one about how to mount a taser to a quadcopter. So if you don't want to fry your brain, you can fry other people's.
And don't confuse those two when you're building
No.
them, please.
Please.
All right. But I did bring up this picture, by the way, that I'm scrolling down. Oh, there
All
they
the
are.
bearings.
Ooh, double balls
Double.
bearings.
Ooh, double ball bearings.
Oh
All the
man,
double ball
videos.
They put a
bearings. Oh my
sleeve
gosh.
on their double ball bearing.
Look at the spinning. Oh my god. I bet they're saying, oh, the oil dries up.
What does it mean?
Shorter lifespan, 12 years average lifespan. Look at those bearings.
So that's like
If you have a
know,
GTX 780 in your system for 12 years, good on
If
you.
that wasn't a
son.
cell phone, it would totally be Josh's.
What's oh man. Vroom. Oh.
Oh,
Oh.
come on. A sleeve bearing goes longer than that. That's like they
That
put
is
dirt in
proof.
it.
You cannot
We've
deny it,
compared
Alan.
The competitors, sleeve bearing.
Oh man, look at this one. That's too long. Moving on.
It's like 3D
Ooh.
assembly.
Mine wasn't gold like that.
because yours didn't have the
Ugh! I want the other
double
one.
ball bearing.
Look
So it
at
actually
them
has 4.
spin.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Do I
Sorry,
have to?
distractions. Josh.
Yeah, the amount of storage you can get for just dirt cheap. Sad.
That
So
is
I like this
cheap.
4 terabyte Seagate drive. It's $189. If you want a cheap data drive to do
Or cheap
backups
date.
and whatever, just do it. What's that, Alan?
I
That was Ryan.
I said cheap date.
I am a cheap date. Have you seen me lately?
Yeah.
Yes.
Every January.
Okay, last, Alan.
Yeah. So you guys know I like these cameras, Sony things.
Sure, why not?
So Sony, those bastards.
Maybe
came out
this
with a-
camera, maybe this version will take cameras with the correct brightness.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think that's an issue with fluorescent lighting. Some fluorescent lighting. It
Well,
throws
people
it.
use fluorescent lighting a lot, so Sony should fix that.
Well, yeah. Anyway. So they came out with a new model of what was previously the HX200V. Now it's the 300, and it's not just like an incremental update. They changed the lens out big time. So it's 24 millimeter to
time.
1200 millimeter zoom range.
A little bit of compensation there going on, eh?
That's so it sticks
Yeah.
out even. It sticks out like another inch when it gets excited. But yeah.
Alan's up to 4 inches, everybody.
Yeah, I might have to
An extra
someday
inch.
I might have to order one of those from Austin Powers.
Oh, all right. So that is the CyberShot digital camera HX300, available
Soon,
Soon.
like this month.
this month, I'm told. Okay. So that's it. We're going to wrap up the show. A shorter one than normal, I think, this week. But next week we'll have a lot more. Is it next week? Yeah, next week we'll have a ton of crap to talk about. So be prepared for that. Also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show, but I don't know if you guys know this guy. He works at ASUS. He does videos with us sometimes. His name is JJ.
Juan J.
JJ, Double J. We're going to call him
Never
Double
heard
J. JJ will be here on Tuesday, June the 3rd? 4th, maybe?
Third, I think 4th is the day I have to go with my children
Tuesday?
to their field trip.
Tuesday.
Well, it's
4th.
June 4th, so I hope you figured that out, Josh. It's-
Probably not.
It's June 4th, Tuesday, June 4th. JJ will be in studio with us. We're going to go over a crap ton of Z87 motherboards. We're going to go over overclocking demonstrations. We're going to go over Haswell performance information. We're going to go over some of the new features that they've added to the ASUS ROG line of motherboards.
Will we finally see what Supreme FX4 is?
I don't know, maybe.
Maybe.
You have to stop in Tuesday and find out. I put it on the schedule tentatively right now at 1 p.m. It will probably stream for, if I know JJ, 8 hours or so. But on the bright side, we'll also be giving away some stuff. We're going to give away, we've got at least 2 Z87 motherboards and a graphics card, a not yet disclosed graphics card to give away. Graphics! So make sure
Yes.
you check the schedule on the side at PCPer.com and make sure you're here for all of Tuesday. If you want to go ahead and schedule off now, would be a good time to do so. And we'll just plan on being with you guys all day on Tuesday. So other than that, PCPer.com/podcast is the URL we would like you to share with people. YouTube.com/PCPer is the channel you should go subscribe to so you can tell everybody how much you love us and our videos. And PCPer.com/live is where we stream this wonderful show on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific.
8 p.m. Mountain.
No, who lives there? Nobody lives there, right? Mountain Time.
Hunter S. Thompson did for a while.
And look how
It's
he
true.
turned out.
Yeah.
So that's it. We will be back next week with as I said before, crap ton of stuff to talk about. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
Bye.